I get asked why Russian food hasn't really garnered the same acclaim as a lot of other cuisines.
We see soul food as a means of our survival.
If you've eaten Chinese food in America in the last 10 years, you are eating Taiwanese food.
My biggest hope and dream for Puerto Rico is that we are no longer a colony of the United States.
I didn't realize how much of Korea was in me until I became a chef.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our second segment with Antonio Diaz. This time, we're going to be talking about the Migrant Kitchen. So hello again, Antonio. Thanks for coming back to talk to us about the Migrant Kitchen. So fill us in a little bit about what this production is.
Yeah, so the Migrant Kitchen, which is on its fourth season now, is basically a docu-series focused on immigrant food here in America, and sort of like the intersection between food culture and the immigrant experience. And what's so special about the fourth season is that now we are covering regions and cities across the US versus just California, which were the previous 3 seasons. So we've been able to expand outside of California. We do have an episode here in Los Angeles, but then we also have an episode focused in Houston, Portland, Brooklyn, and Puerto Rico as well.
Wow, so you went all over while you were filming this. Did you have did you get a good look at seeing how each of these cities worked during the time of COVID while you were going from kitchen to kitchen? Any differences, and like, was it adapting differently for each restaurants? What was that vibe like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the area that was the most strict was Puerto Rico. So going into the island, people kind of forget that that's a US territory and they think it's like a different country. And that's also part of like why we wanted to cover this region. But the island treats like anybody coming in like as if you're an international foreigner, because it's really easy to just, transmit the virus on a small little island. And then you had Portland, which was also severely hit early on in the pandemic. So they took things very, very seriously. Everything was outdoors, as far as like most of the restaurants, and everything was being served in like plastic cups and plastic plates. Not the restaurant we covered in that episode, which is Kachka. But and then we went to Texas, and that
do what you want.
yeah, it was the complete opposite.
Yeah,
like there's no pandemic.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. Not really. Yeah. Not in Texas. Well, that's a trip to know that it's different wherever you go. And the first episode focuses in LA, in the San Gabriel Valley, and you learn a little bit about Taiwanese culture and the food that is served there. I thought it was very educational to learn about a young man that grows up learning about the food from his family, specifically cooking like a fish dish, which was really delicious to look at, and I'm sure probably tasted great as well. So tell us a little bit about the first episode that's going to be showcased for this season.
Yeah, so we start the season here in Los Angeles, our home, and the chef that you're referring to, his name is John Yao, and he has a restaurant called Cato, and it's a Michelin-starred restaurant. It's one of the best restaurants I've ever had the opportunity to eat at. And what's interesting is that he's really taking his culture, which is Taiwanese, and presenting it in a very high-end fine dining perspective. There's a lot of Chinese influence here in Los Angeles, but Taiwanese is a little different, and it's just so interesting to see his creativity kind of take influences from San Gabriel Valley, which has like the highest influence of Chinese and Taiwanese influence, and taking a lot of these nostalgic dishes and how he grew up eating and presenting it into a multi-coursed Michelin-starred setting. And he's so talented, and he's so young too. I think he's like 29 or 28, something like that.
Wow, crushing it.
Just crushing it. Yeah. So it was just like so interesting to see him in action. And part of like what the show is trying to showcase is basically like we're all sort of products of our own environment, right? And migration and immigrants that go from their origin country to a place like Los Angeles, their food and their influence is going to evolve with the city and with what is surrounding them. And that becomes its own culture. So you have these hyphenated groups, immigrant groups, Mexican American, Taiwanese American. I myself am a Mexican American. My parents are from Mexico, but I grew up here in Los Angeles. My understanding of what is authentic to me is going to be very different to what is authentic to them. I grew up kind of like I wasn't brown enough for Mexico and I wasn't white enough for America. And those are the chefs that we're covering for this show, like that middle ground, that hyphenated group, because they're gonna start to be one foot in one homeland and another foot in here in America. And that to me is American food. American food is immigrant food. It's just a melting pot of influences. So with John, he's taking a lot of his influences from his parents and his ancestors, but he grew up in San Gabriel Valley. He grew up here in California. So he is going to be mixing a lot of his heritage with other ingredients that are native to California, other influences that are native to just California and not necessarily China or anywhere else. And that to me is the most interesting thing that's happening, not just here in Los Angeles, but across the board in the food industry. Some of the best food that you're now finding are going to be from hyphenated immigrant chefs that are mixing heritage and tradition with other ingredients that maybe you can't find in their homeland, or maybe they're influences by other cultures because you're surrounded by diversity.
Yeah, you had a really great segment where you had a bunch of the different chefs or restaurateurs rather sitting around a table while they're all enjoying food, talking about how they make the food, how their restaurants run, what their ingredients are, and then they're just kind of exchanging ideas and, you know, dishes and ingredients, and, you know, it's all starting to fuse because one learns from another, and then you just have a new creation that's presented, and then before you know it, you'll be eating a dish that you've never heard of, never thought of, and that it's the best thing you've ever eaten. So I thought that was a pretty cool segment. And another segment that you had in it also was the search for the ingredients, about how he goes to a farm, which it specifically grows the ingredients that's necessary for the dishes of a Taiwanese culture. And that, you know, it's very, very niche, but the guy really has like the market cornered, and he gives it to all of the big chefs and restaurants around the area. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that, and then like literally going from farm to table type style?
Yeah, absolutely. So the farm that you're referring to is called Girl and Doug, and it's in San Marcos, California. And the founder, Aaron Choi, who is one of the smartest people that I've ever met in when it comes to farming. This guy he's not necessarily farming for mass production, and he's not also farming for grocery stores or markets. Like, he's specifically farming for chefs, and he's experimenting with all sorts of different hybrids and ingredients that you have never heard of. And it's like a Willy Wonka of produce that he's basically growing. And he's working with like John Yao, but he's also working with some of the best chefs in Los Angeles. And he's become sort of like the darling of the chefs in Los Angeles, because he will tweak and tweak and tweak to get the perfect carrot or the perfect, strawberry. I had a white strawberry from his farm that I swear to God, it tasted like a dessert. It was like biting into like a strawberry cheesecake. Like, it was so sweet, and I've never tasted a strawberry like that in my life, where you taste a little a tomato, and it's just like full of sweetness, and it just kind of like transports you to somewhere else. So he is also growing a lot of Asian produce as well, but it's derived from nostalgia. But how can you take something that is so nostalgic and traditional and evolve it and make it something more interesting or exciting? And it's just like a punch of flavor. I have no idea how he does it. I mean, it's like sorcery what he's doing. And you mix that with a chef like John Yao, who's already like one of the most creative chefs in Los Angeles. And it's just like this perfect combination of flavor and creativity and imagination. And it's sort of like you get these ratatouille moments. There's a dish, there's like what is it? It's like a I think it's like a shrimp or fish dish that John makes that literally tastes like orange chicken from Pan Express.
Oh, right. His walnut shrimp. He talks about that. Like I like Panda Express, and it's kind of like that, but it's like better, much better.
So it's like that's what he does. He plays with your memories, and that is so unique to food. Like no other medium could do that with all of like your senses. And you're just like, what is, like, I know that taste, I know that flavor from my past or from a memory. So it's identifiable, but it's something completely different, you know? It's a completely different ingredient. It's not even chicken, it's not from Pan Express, but he plays with those memories and he presents it in such a whimsical manner.
He's very serious about what he does. I saw when he was picking the flowers and then putting them into the dish meticulously to make it look gorgeous. It's like smaller portions, but you take a bite and it's just like the most amazing thing that you could possibly eat. And like he's dedicated his life and to this craft, and you're already getting a Michelin star at 29. That's pretty solid, and it looks great. The show was very educational. I learned a lot, especially with the segment where they talked about New Chinatown and how they expanded out into the valley and how they were looking for the ingredients of how to make the certain dishes. So I enjoyed looking at it, which was delicious, learning about it, which was educational, and watching it, which was fun. So I hope our audience is able to check out the Migrant Kitchen, which is on season 4, that is going to be premiering Tuesday, January 25th at 8:30 p.m. On KCET in SoCal, and on Monday, January 31st at 7:30 p.m. on PBS SoCal, as well as nationwide Saturday, January 29th, 8:30 p.m. on Link TV, DirecTV 375, and Dish Network 9410. So thank you again for coming back to talk to us about the Migrant Kitchen. Antonio, this has been an awesome interview, and I hope our audiences can check out the Migrant Kitchen.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, Alex.